Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh
and Reg,
and we're grateful to be back on with you yet again. We got a good show planned for y'all. First off, oh man, I hate to say it, y'all. We got some big things happening in the world as usual. We talking about what's going on with what's really happening south of the border. We know there's old news of we keep hearing something new every day. Trump's indicted here. Trump's indicted there. He turned on the light in the car one time at midnight. He got indicted for that. Lots of things happening, and we're going to get into kind of more so the crux of what that means for culture on a broad scale, how that affects us here at home in Canada, and we're going to be talking about that. And then we're also going to be talking about, that thing that's happening across the pond, that whole Russia-Ukraine thing and how that's affecting the rest of the world. There was some news that came out this past week that was a little worrisome, but I think everyone should know about, and that's really important. But Reg, how you doing, that big dog?
I'm doing good. I'm having a good one. Had a good weekend. Had lots of people over for barbecues and food, and played a little golf. So I'm feeling good. I got a little sun, so I'm glowing right now.
Dude, this guy's glowing.
Yeah,
this guy's got a Superman shirt on, and he's glowing.
I do. And if you read it, it says, "I'm kind of a big deal."
Oh, gee. Oh my gosh. Is that a Dane Cook reference?
I don't think so. I don't.
What was
maybe
that from again? I can't remember.
I don't know. It's Superman, right? So he is kind of a big deal. So.
Oh, baby. All right. Well, first thing I want to get into is you talked about this before the show. Let's get into some lighthearted stuff first. What's up going on with you in Barbie movie out here? What's been happening with you and your family? Something going on? Stuff happening in the the Manzer household over here.
Okay. So basically, to shorten a long story, my mom was conned into taking my niece to the Barbie movie by my niece. So my brother was like, I don't want my niece, or he was like, I don't want my daughter to go see this movie.
Gee.
He's like, I think it's too old for her. I think that the themes are not exactly what I want her to view and stuff like this. So her other grandmother had offered to take her to go see this Barbie movie. And they had said, no, we don't want you to take my niece to go see this movie. So then my niece goes to stay with my parents for a week, and she's like, Grammy, can you take me to the Barbie movie? All my friends are going to see it, and I'd really love to see it.
Got that sweet talk.
Oh yeah, and of course my parents, being like grandparenthood, are just like, yes, definitely, 100%, we're gonna do this. So my mom and her went and saw a Barbie movie and were fine, came back. And my brothers, it's just been tearing the Manzer household. I have 3 younger brothers, right? So I'm just kind of like, whatever, it's a female empowerment movie, big deal. And then the next brother is just like, who has the daughter, is just like, this is going against my parenting, that, I didn't want her to see this, and now she's seen it and can't unsee it and all this stuff. And then the third guy is just like, we need to be fighting for women's rights. And so he's like, it's funny, the political spectrum in this house. And then the youngest guy, who hasn't seen the movie, is just like, this is a controversial movie, and I can't believe mommy would take, this niece to go see. And it's so, everybody has been arguing about this stupid movie. And it's so funny because Jen, my wife, is just like, Reg, we got to see this freaking movie now. Because everybody's so upset by it. And I'm like, I can't believe it. I am going to have to now see this movie. So she's got a plan that,
we got it in the calendar.
Later on, we're going to we don't want to actually go to the theaters because we're cheap. So
I hear you on that, dog.
We're just going to stream it illegally.
Hey.
But we're going to watch the Barbie movie because everybody in the family is all up in arms, and people are having ideological crises over this movie. I'm like, why is this a thing?
What was the last movie that ever did this to households is my question. I'm trying to think through it at the moment.
I don't know. I really don't know.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. But it's funny because one of the arguments that was used by the parent, like my brother, was that he was like, this was not rated. She's under 13. This is a PG-13 movie. And of course, like at the time, mom was like, oh yeah, like, you know, the rating kind of thing. And my niece pipes up saying, well, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy and that's a PG-13 movie.
Oh,
and I was
got
like,
him.
oh, no.
Got him.
So she's just as bad, right? So she was playing my mom like a fiddle, right? She was like, oh, let's, you know, go to Barbie movie. Let's get snacks, Grammy, and all this stuff. And my mom, like being the kind soul she is, she's like, this is wonderful. Gonna go to a movie with my granddaughter and we're gonna get, you know, snacks and sneak them into the theater as you do. And oh my God, yeah, the turmoil that has caused in our household or in our families.
What did your brother's wife think of all this?
She was very much of the mindset that like that her word was that she didn't want her to see the movie, so therefore
she was on board with it.
Yeah, so it was more along the lines of less of the movie and more along the lines of like you've, you know, overstepped your parenting kind of thing. And I'm like, that's what grandparents do. Like I remember growing up, I got to be fortunate enough to like live only like 5-minute walk away from my grandparents. They were just down the street from us, and mom and dad would tell us no. And then we'd go down to my grandparents, and, you know, Grammy and Grampy, and they'd tell us yes, and they'd give you candy, and like, you know what I mean? Like that's just the role. So like I get like as a parent, like that could be somewhat annoying, but that's just the way life is. And I think people are taking things too seriously. But anyway, so Barbie movie.
It's been out for what, almost a month and a half now, and it's still causing waves there. No. Holy jumping. All right. There's also a kind of a PSA you want to put out before we get started tonight. What is it?
Yeah. So last Friday was Overdose Awareness Month. And it's funny because we had kind of talked about different things around like overdoses and drugs and legalization of drugs and things like that. And so one of the nonprofits actually that I'm working for, I say working for, volunteering for, I'm putting in a lot of hours, so it feels like work, but but I'm volunteering with them, kind of doing their strategy, setting up and working on decriminalization. So it's a group of doctors that have gotten together and they said, you know, safe supply, so that's where you actually provide the drugs, is kind of like a contentious topic. And they're like legalization, also contentious. The jury's still out on those two particular topics, but the one thing that everybody across the board agrees with is decriminalization. So that's where if you're found with the drugs, you're not going to be thrown in jail, not going to give it a criminal record, because what that does is it basically just makes the problem so much worse. So trying to take people who have addiction and rehab them and get them help, medical help, rather than throwing them in a jail cell. And it was interesting, just one of the things I learned through it was just the fact that like it's so much more expensive to put somebody in jail than it is to actually pay for a rehab program. So it's actually like better tax money use than what we're doing currently right now. And that was like I know that was for people who are very close to the subject, that's kind of like a low issue for them. But for me, and I think for a lot of people, like that's a big issue. Like we're watching right now political leaders like misuse funds. And it's like, here's a really easy way to do something more effective and more efficient at the same time. And it's, you know, quite easy, and it's all in the power of decision makers. Right. So, yeah.
Sweet. So, yeah, I guess I mainly got two questions for you. First off, on the kind of the heels of a topic that's really a hot button issue amongst the political leaders in this country is obviously the issue that's happening out in Vancouver at the moment, Hastings Street, where that is the pulse that they're going by, and it doesn't seem to be getting better.
No, and see, that's the thing, is that what they're seeing is they're seeing more users showing up because they're not going to be criminalized. And it's actually, that's safe supply in that example. So that's not just decriminalization. They got a special exemption to actually decriminalize and provide safe supply. And so what's happening is you're actually seeing a concentration. So it's not so much that you're seeing numbers go up per se, so you're seeing it more concentrated in one area because they know that they can get help and they can get access to things there. But what you are seeing that they've noticed in that, and I've read the studies on this, is that the amount of deaths related to overdose have gone down. And I think that's the big thing, right? Is that you can't help somebody once they've already passed. And so whether you can help everyone or not, that's, obviously there's going to be some people who are beyond help. But there's some people who are not. And so if you can get those people before they go to that, point of no return, and before they end up, passing away, that's what we're all about. So,
right. Yeah. I think in theory it makes sense. But I think I'm only asking clarification questions only because, this is a hot button issue right now in our country. And, you're seeing these images of people kind of like the walking zombies, like they're just kind of like not all there. And it's just like the streets are kind of like full of them. And then like those images are then portrayed, put in the media and the news. And to a regular person such as myself or anybody else, that is like their immediate thought is, how do we clean this up? Like this isn't a good scene.
Oh God, no. And so one of the big things that I'm saying is that like that's still happening. And so whether or not you're a safe supply advocate or a legalization advocate, that's one thing. But the fact is like those walking zombies, like if you put those people in jail and then you give them a criminal record, what hope do they have of coming out of that to then find a regular job and get a house and be a productive and contributing member of society? Like you've just stripped that away from them. And so that's where I kind of look at it like decriminalization is the step where you can say like, okay, we're going to get you help and hopefully get you clean and on a program where you can get better. And so that you can find employment, that you can find housing, so that you can find ways to feel fulfilled and that you don't need to use in order to be fulfilled. Because I think that we're seeing a crisis right now, and you always see it when you have economic trouble, that you see the number of suicides go up, you see the amount of drugs of abuse usage go up, you see the amount of alcohol consumption go up. We saw that happen over the pandemic too. So it's very tied into the whole network of things. And so when you think about the fact that like if people losing their jobs makes them more susceptible and more at risk for drug use, why would you take somebody who's already a drug user and strip them of their ability to then get a job? Like it just, so.
Right. And I think I agree with the notion of, we don't want to put up more barriers for people to kind of come out of it. Mm-hmm. I guess more of my question was, and I guess this is where we're clearing things up, is it's more so we want to try and keep the drugs off the streets, but regulate them to these people to help them out rather than just letting it go free reign. Is that what I'm understanding?
Actually, like that's a whole step in the future. Like that's like, I'm not even at that point, like, cause I don't know what that looks like. Gotcha. And I don't know how you would do that in a way that's like evidence-based and effective and safe. So I put that kind of like on the shelf as like, I don't know what that looks like yet, but right now it's just, if you are a person who is using drugs, not being criminally responsible for that, being sent to a hospital versus a jail.
I see what you're saying.
So,
okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool. That makes sense to me. Cool.
So yeah. So it's called Doctors for Decrim. So that's a group I'm working with. So if you see on my Instagram and feeds and stuff like that, different things come up. It's become near and dear to my heart too, because I actually lost my first cousin to a drug overdose where he was using a drug that was laced with, I'm trying to remember, I know that the cure for it is naloxone. Fentanyl, there we go. It was laced with fentanyl, and so, pushed him over the edge. And he lost his life. And so one of the things that I pull from that too is that he was also a person, housing insecure, person who was not able to hold down a job. So there's like lots of issues there when you kind of look at the whole picture. And then using drugs to kind of cope with the realities of their situation. And so it's interesting when you kind of take the whole social determinants of health approach to different things. You're like, oh yeah, you can pull out the economy string, you can pull out like the housing string, you can pull out like community string, and you can pull out all these different pieces and go, this is kind of like the predictors for people who are then maybe going to engage in these activities. And then it's like, you know, when you look at it from that perspective and say, okay, they're in an environment that's going to put them at risk. It's like, well, then, you know, throwing them in jail, is that really kind of rehabbing them, or is that just kind of, you know, just putting them away so that you don't have to deal with them? And it's like, these are people, right?
Totally.
So,
yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
appreciate the clarification on that.
yeah, no worries.
Yeah, and those who are interested, go check that out. It's an interesting cause and interesting to kind of see where it kind of takes us. So
Yeah, and it's funny because like I bring it up too because I think that one of the things that people don't know about us is that the pair of us, we volunteer a lot, and so that's something I kind of wanted to bring out, is that the fact that like we actually do like do a lot of volunteering in our spare time, because I think that we kind of get labeled as the, you know, the white boy podcast bros, but
well, now you did it now, Reg. Now you're going to be labeled as the white saviors.
I know, can't do anything right?
No.
But yeah,
You're white.
What's that, sir?
Because you're white.
White. Anyway, all I'm saying is that, you know, I think that something that's kind of fun is that we do engage in our community a lot. So if you are looking for avenues to volunteer in, hit us up, whether it be sports related or, you know, decriminalization of drugs of abuse or
What a range.
yeah, or housing related or sitting on a board or any of those things. So I think that, yeah, there's lots of things to get involved in. And I think that that's something that's super important, especially where you feel like the world's crumbling around you. If you can make things a little bit brighter on the spot, it's good for the mental health.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing that kind of came out even with one of my friends the other day. He's like, you guys talk about like news stuff and what makes you different from the news? You know, it's just like, keep telling me all the things that are going wrong. And it's like, yeah, you're right. I think it's good to be aware of what's happening around you. But as well, something that I've been a huge fan of and very passionate about is always investing in the community directly around you. And to make people's lives a little more positive, helps you to kind of get out of your own head, out of your own self, focus on others' needs, which it kind of does something a little different for you. And third, it's just good to be able to kind of put that positivity out and be able to really, if the media is always telling us to fear your neighbor, to be suspicious of your neighbor, being working in your community allows you to work with a variety of different types of people that you otherwise wouldn't be talking with. And that helps you with the mental health as well.
Yeah. And it's also, I find there's like almost like two other points I would add to that. One is validating to talk to people like just one-on-one, because I think that sometimes we're forced a narrative that maybe you think that everybody in society apparently agrees with but you. And then when you actually go talk to real human beings of all walks of life, of all, you know, stride, and then they're like, yeah, actually, like, I think that's hot garbage. You're like, oh, thank God. You mean you don't like the carbon tax either? Cool.
We're in this together. No way. Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm back teaching a user experience course here at NASCAD here this fall, and that's actually one of the points of my curriculum I'm throwing in.
Oh,
is I'm actually going to be getting to know the students pretty intimately in terms of what they're passionate about, what they know, and then because the whole thing is learning about human behavior and designing for people and making a product that will make their lives easier, make their lives better. So my key thing is I'm going to find out kind of what these people are passionate about, and then find the opposite side of that belief and ask them to
design for it,
interview those people and design for those people.
Oh, I love that.
To help with their empathy.
love that so much. That's so cool, because I think that kind of critical lens is something that we're missing, because we can all get trapped in our own echo chambers. So love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Let's freaking go. It's going to be spicy. All right. Well, we put it off long enough.
I know.
What's been happening down there in the States with the old Trump bandwagon over there, and holy smokes, getting his old mugshot out there and holy jumping. I'm thinking back to Melanie, Joly, our foreign affairs minister here in Canada, who mentioned that we're keeping a close eye on the American election coming. My God. And we want to make sure those themes don't make it up here in Canada. So we have to take some actions, we will. And so I taking Melanie Joly's advice and starting to keep a close eye on what's going on south of the border. And I'm not liking what I'm seeing.
No.
Can
I interrupt?
Inject.
Just a hot
interject,
moment.
I should say.
Just a hot moment. What a power move to post your own mugshot, I have to say. Oh, Trump. Posting his own mugshot. And then the other thing too, him actually like hosting his conversation at the same time as the debate. It was just like, oh my God.
Counter programming.
What a guy. So some of the things that I'm seeing that I'm not liking, and I'm thinking kind of like aligns with, because I saw that recently, actually I think it's tomorrow they're going to start the trials for the convoy freedom protest leaders. And I'm just like, ooh, like when we start putting protesters and people who are, protesting the current government on trial, it feels worrisome. Like,
you know where they got that from though too?
What's that?
Where do you think they got their lead from on that?
I don't know, man.
Come on, man. That's what I'm talking about. Got to keep an eye on what's happening. People are going to think it's differently. Think differently about it, but there are some connections and parallels. But they're definitely picking up their lead from what they're seeing with the American government, what they're doing the J6ers, the January 6th.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Doing the exact same thing.
Well, that's what I just said.
Would you?
I thought you were saying like, do you know who like the American government who are putting the protesters there on trial are getting their?
Oh no, I was talking about the Canadians are getting the lead, the lead from the Americans.
Yeah. Okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. Well, and I do find it interesting. Are there people on January 6th that deserve to probably be behind bars? Yes. Are there people that they've prosecuted and have held in jail who've done nothing but stood on the grounds because their face got caught on camera? That happened. Mm-hmm. And that is happening.
Yeah.
That's a spooky place to be in.
Yeah.
And so, as you're saying with what's going on with the convoy organizers, that the fact they're being put on trial for what they did, for protesting in this country. It goes back to something you said a couple months ago. Is this the death of protest in this country?
Yeah.
This is a sign of if you're going to go up against the man, Shadow School of Rock, they're going to make sure you pay it and use you as an example to remind the rest of the population.
Stay in line.
Don't do that again.
Yeah.
So.
And okay, yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page there, because I was just like, yeah, they're taking it from the U.S. But then I was like, when I wasn't quite sure. I was like, communist China?
We're also both like really tired and missing some cues tonight. So. But yeah, so we have a former president who's now officially got his mugshot put out. And that was the funny thing. I think it was all the hubbub around that was his opponents were psyched. Where it's like, finally, we got him. We got him booked. We got his mugshot done. And now, definitely, he's never going to be able to run again. And what's this man do? He takes the mugshot, and his first tweet, since he got casted off the platform after the last election, he posts his mugshot. Gets over 275 million views. Mm-hmm. Boys.
That's what I said. Power move. Like,
it's crazy.
Honestly, a power move.
And now it was a weird time, because there's been a few times throughout all the craziness since 2020 where I've seen two sides agree on something. And I saw two sides agree on something with this whole situation. They both loved the mugshot.
Yeah.
And the weird part when I was reading it, and this is definitely controversial, but I read it, not saying I agree with it. This is what I read, is that now apparently the Democrats are getting a little nervous because for somehow, some way, this is their words from their side, is that his mugshot has made him more relatable to the black community. And to that question, why? Why is he more relatable to the black community? Democrat, I have a question. Do you care to clarify what you mean by that? Cool. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So these things are coming out, right? So, and now they're realizing that it was good for him, and they're not liking it.
Yeah. Well, the easiest way to put somebody ahead is to make them a martyr, right? Because now he's going to run on the same kind of ideology of like the Nelson Mandela, right? You know, thrown in jail for my beliefs. I served my time. I'm just one of the people. I'm just like you. These elites, you know, he's going to go back to that drain the swamp mentality. And I think that that's like, yeah, they're making a martyr out of him. And if they really want this to go away quietly, they're doing a bad job at it.
They're doing everything they can to make sure the goal is just make sure he can't run again.
I know.
That's the goal, right? And if they're not successful in it, what degrees are they willing to go to? And I say this because I thought this was interesting. They tried their best to disparage him. He's a racist. He's this, he's that. Didn't really work. All right. He tried to incite an insurrection. Is a word that they really throw around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Don't see the proof of that happening, but they claimed it happened. That didn't work. So now they're getting him on subversion of an election, and that's what he's getting indicted on now.
Yep.
Get his mugshot out there. We'll get him. The problem I'm having with this is the Joe Biden government is leveraging the FBI, the CIA, to go after Trump right now.
Yep.
This has never happened in at least the recent history of the states. This doesn't happen. The FBI and CIA are supposed to be just a wing of whatever government entity is. It's not supposed to be party affiliated.
Yep.
And that's where I'm getting nervous because now Trump's been a little more vocal. They've been asking him, what are you going to do if you get in power? Well, he's on record now saying, I'm going to do it back to them.
Yep.
And they can't have that. And this is where Tucker Carlson, love him or hate him, mentioned this on one of his latest shows, was that his prediction is that the current government of the U.S. is going to incite a hot war with Russia. So it puts us into a war where they don't have to have an election in order that he can't be elected. That's his prediction.
That's his prediction? Okay.
What are your thoughts when you hear that? I'm curious.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past America, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of money that they can make off of a war is insane. And I've become more cynical, I think, about how much these financial entities are actually using political unrest and using natural disasters and using different things to just ingratiate themselves with wealth, property, and just things. So I think that a war would be in the best interest of some of these large financial entities. And I think that it would also serve the Democratic Party. So I don't think that it's beyond possible, especially when you're seeing kind of like things heating up over there, especially with, I know that they sent, I forget what spent uranium they sent to Ukraine recently. There's been some different missiles being tested. I think we might actually talk about that later. Yeah. So there's, it's not looking ideal, I think. And so it's worrisome. And I think the big thing that I worry about is like when people think about the measures that are taken against their opponents, they never do think about the fact it's like, okay, well, when the power shifts, all of that can be used against you then. So you have to really make sure that what you're doing is fair and is just, because otherwise, if it's not fair and it's not just, it's going to be used against, people that you think are good. So I think about like, I keep coming back to the Emergency Measures Act in Canada. It's like, if, you're a Justin Trudeau fan and you're like 100% he should have used the Emergency Measures Act, like shut down that protest. It's like, okay, so what happens when the conservative, guy that you don't like gets into power, you start protesting and then they use the Emergency Measures Act against you? It's like, you can't, it's been created legal precedent now, so you can't not. So it's like everything you let out of Pandora's box can be used against you. So I think that what's happening down there is very concerning, very dangerous. And I think that our leaders in Canada are taking note, and it's not in a good way. So it's concerning, I'd say.
Totally. And that's where I stand at this point, where it's now clear, where I'm even talking to my left-leaning friends down in the States, where they've so much as gone far as saying, I'm not liking where this is going. It gets clear at this point that they are just weaponizing the system against him. Mm-hmm. The fact that they indicted him and that they made sure that his first hearing wasn't until the day before or the day of Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna say it's not politically. Yeah. You're gonna say it's not politically motivated at this point. Love or hate Donald Trump. This is, as you said, is creating precedent for the day if Trump gets in, which they're going to do their best to make sure he can't get in, because he said it himself, it's going to be his final term. What's he to be afraid of at this point?
Yeah.
He's going to come after them with everything. Hillary Clinton's on the board. Joe Biden's on the board. Hunter Biden's on the board.
Hunter Biden for sure.
Hunter Biden's on the board. President Obama is on the board. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the Democrat Party is is on the board. What are you going to do? And as you said, I think you bring up the War Measures Act that happened up here. As you said, as soon as you unload Pandora's box, you've allowed the opportunity for it to be used against you. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm personally not super psyched about what's coming, what's happening down in the States as we get closer to a potential election. We're going to start seeing more political violence. We're going to start seeing more George Floyd-like incidents. And what I mean by that is things that are kind of deemed in the social justice realm will be used and weaponized to rile up the bases on either side. And you're going to be then encouraged to hate your neighbor.
Yeah.
Be cognizant of that.
And I think that it's interesting, the fact that I was actually talking about this with my family, who's very divided about the Barbie movie right now. We were talking actually a lot about the transgender issues that are happening right now, the conversation around that. And one of the things that my very conservative leading father said, he's like, whether you are supportive or non-supportive, he's like, I feel like this is a distraction. And it was just kind of that moment of pause, like when everybody was arguing back and forth, because the family's very split, liberal, conservative on many different topics. And it was just a moment of pause. It's like, it does. He's like, the economy's crapping out right now. He's like, and people are losing their jobs, and things are not doing well. And these large corporations are making more money than they've ever had in their life, and nobody's holding them to account, because we're all so focused on these issues right now. And some things that are we've created issues out of non-issues. I don't know if people saw, but there was a Freedom of Information Act against the Premier of New Brunswick about, he had said to the media that he had gotten lots of emails from concerned parents around the transgendered issue. And then it came out that there were no emails about it. And so, because, when the Freedom of Information request came in, they said, we can't give you anything. And they said, well, why not? And they said, because nothing exists. And so it's just interesting when you think about that too. It's just all this stuff that's happening, and like you said, issues that are being weaponized. I wonder how much of this is a distraction. If you get angry at your neighbor, you're not angry at the rich person, north of Richmond, who's making all the mistakes and making it harder for you. So that's my takeaway, is really kind of lean on your neighbors and really kind of seeing their humanity, and think about this. Is this something that's really, something that's really dividing us, and something that we maybe can't agree to disagree, or something like that? Is this something that's going to, need to be canceled? Or is this, just another detraction or distraction? And so, and like I said, thinking about all the things that are happening with Trump and all that, I'm just it's scary from the sense of weaponizing our current system. But I think it's also scary because it's taking so much attention from real things that are happening to people right now. And it's just it's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I think about Maui.
Yes. Yeah.
The opportunity that's arisen from that, and how you're seeing big money come in, and you have the government who's looking to buy back all the property, and under the guise of we're making sure that no big business comes in and swoops in and takes it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, we're already in bed with all the big businesses that are going to get this property at some point, likely. And like, these are the things you got to keep an eye on. These are this is the stuff that's happening, like under your nose, where we're all becoming renters before you know it. Even if you feel like you own your property, your amortization rate you've been forced to extend it to 60 years. You are in effect a renter at that point.
Yep.
You know, these are the things that are happening, and then the conversations come about. It's like, well, it's capitalism's fault. No, you just want social, and that thing that ruins everything. And that shut up. Like that's beyond the pale at this point. Yes, do I still believe in capitalism? 100%. Because I don't believe in this crony capitalism that's happened, where we got all the private industry getting in bed with the public industry and screwing over the people that the public administration was supposed to tend to look after.
You mean kind of like all the backroom trades of the Greenbelt in Ontario right now?
Oh, you want to go there? Well, hey, we can. Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and then they came out and said, I'm not going to step down. We're sorry that we did this though. Like, shut up. Like, shut up. You were wrong. You know what you were doing, and you should step down immediately. And to those who listen to the show, know that, Josh, you're very right-leaning. Doug Ford and his administration, they're conservative. I don't care. What they did was wrong. That's the type of politics I want out of this country, period. I don't care which side of the spectrum you lie on. You should be responding to your constituents, period, and what they need and what their needs are. But that's clear that you're in bed with a bunch of friends. It's clear that you invited all your buddies to your daughter's wedding and they got a bunch of gifts through it. You're going to tell me that wasn't a conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Killing me out here, Doug. I loved your brother. I'll be on the record saying that. I loved your brother, but you suck. So anyways, I'll leave it at that.
I mean, it's close to heart, right? I mean, spent a lot of time in Ontario, so... But
Robbie was my first person I voted for, dog.
Oh my God.
Woo!
Get those horns going.
Yeah, baby.
But yeah, no, when I saw that, and it's funny because I actually watched a reporter talking to Doug Ford. He was saying, you know, you keep citing all these different political moves that your predecessors made around the Greenbelt. And he's like, but they weren't wheeling and dealing properties from the Greenbelt. He's like, they were administrative moves. And also one of I think it's the housing minister actually stepped down. And so they had like a big puff piece about him on the CBC, and they were like, he still should be like respected for the work that he does for his constituents, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, and they were like, just because he messed up the Greenbelt deal and wasn't keeping a close eye on it, you know, I'm like, if you let a deal that bad go through, I'm sorry, I don't know how trustworthy you are for your constituents. I don't care how nice a guy you are. You know, if you're a doctor and you kill a bunch of patients, it's like, I'm sorry, like you could be the nicest person in the world, but you shouldn't practice medicine anymore. It's, you know, we need to be holding politicians to that level of scrutiny, like where you say there should be qualifications, there should be evaluations, and there should be legally binding rules around what you promise, what you say, and what you do. And I think that would actually elevate the profession, because I think right now, I don't think it's a very worthy profession right now. And I think that it's hard, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's two groups of politicians at this point, right? There's one group who is the establishment. They've been there forever. They do things the way they do things. They're doing it for themselves, and they're in bed with private corporations to enrich themselves. And there's two, they're the Z outsiders who are on the ground. They're typically in local governments, where it just typically is trying to fight for what's right for their constituents. But as they make their way up the ladder, they eventually get corrupted, and they end up becoming part of the establishment. There's only very few people through time who prove that they can be outsiders and remain outsiders, and they get attacked through the nose over it.
I know.
And so
watching that happen with our premier, like Timmy, I'm your fan, man. I have to say, I keep seeing
you're his number one fan.
I am his number one fan. I keep seeing different things, and I'm hearing from different, very left-leaning people in my circles talking about how appreciative they are of the support that they've been getting through healthcare, through housing, through different initiatives for disabilities that they've never seen before from any left-leaning government. And so that they were shocked that they got from this government. And like, you know what, like, and I've heard from people who know him personally, like, you know, giving accolades about him. So I'm just like, you know what, I respect you. There's a couple things I wish you'd do, and I could write them out for you, but one of them being personal income tax that needs to be adjusted, but that might be a conversation for a later date. But I do think I watch him get attacked constantly, and it's just like, man, like, I think that there needs to be more voices saying like, you did this thing over here, that was really good, we appreciate you for doing that. Because I think that that's happening in back rooms. It's not happening in the mainstream conversation. And it's kind of annoying, because I had sat across the table from 5 different healthcare professionals saying, we have more room to actually do community-based healthcare than we've ever had in our lifetime. And this is something that's going to make things better for the next decades going on. And all people are talking about, they're like, the doctor wait list has grown exponentially. It's like, well, yeah, because there's a problem. It's been festering for way longer than he's been in power, and way longer than the people before him have been in power. It's been a slow build to this eventual calamity that we have now. And so, but that's all that is the narrative right now. And so I think that it's challenging, right? Because you do get the politicians, like you said, that are just in bed with corporations selling off the green belt, and then you get a good politician who's actually like trying to work for the people, and they're all just painted with the same brush. And honestly, a lot of times you don't even know what to believe. And so that's the most frustrating part, is because you look at some media articles and you're like, well, that's very left leaning, or that's very right leaning. And you're like, what am I supposed to think here?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're here for the conversation at this point, right?
Yeah.
But I think I'll put some names out there. All right. I'll put Justin Trudeau. We'll start off with him. our boy, the GOAT.
Daddy
Trudeau. I think Chrystia Freeland. I'm going to put Sean Fraser out there. I'm going to put Jagmeet Singh out there. I'm going to put Doug Ford out there. I'm going to put his finance minister, forgetting his name, out there. And then I'm going to, only because I don't know where he's going to land yet, I'm going to put Pierre in that group as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a group of people that I don't trust, can't trust, will not trust until proven otherwise. To me, they're all establishment politicians to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping that what Pierre's talking about, he actually means, and he'll follow through on it. And don't you worry, this show will be talking about it when he gets in power. But those people are all self-serving with themselves. They don't care about us. They care about their coffers. They care about what's happening in Ottawa. They don't care about us as much as they say they do. That's my perspective. I'm sticking to it. The reason why I think this, an indication of it, is you mentioned it early in the show. You said it was the finance minister who was forced to step down out of Ford's
housing minister.
Sorry, the housing minister.
Yep.
And then CBC was quick to give him a nice, beautiful send-off.
Yeah.
He was a great leader. You should start questioning the minute CBC starts talking well about a politician. All right? Start questioning that. Immediately seeing that, immediately I'm like, all right, I know what team they're on. I know what they're a part of. Because the past few years, as I've been paying closer attention to what's been happening in politics in this country, I know that those who have the power of the narrative as well, and are able to manipulate it. So I don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I land at this point, where I'm starting to see things happening down the States, how that's starting to kind of fester up here, and notes are being taken, and we'll see where this all goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still going to call it out when it happens. I'm still going to call out the good things when they happen. But I can't trust a person worth a dime these days. Can't even trust you. I'm just kidding.
you eat at my house,
I was wondering why I felt sick after that. He meant it. He meant it. I was kidding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll remember. But speaking of remembering things, I know that we had brought up earlier about what's happening over there in Ukraine, back in old country. Yeah,
I'm gonna pretend you didn't say that. And so this happened just last week. Russia just came out saying they are now arming their Satan II nuclear bomb, which is, they said, 1,000 times more deadly than what hit Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and can take out the UK, the whole UK, within 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And they said that is now online and ready to go. Putin, before, in the early parts of the war with Ukraine, he said that they would not be using nuclear weapons unless they faced an existential crisis or they felt the threat that they needed to use it. I don't know what this means. I know obviously this could just be saber rattling and it could all cool down. And for that, I would hope it would be. I think we're too early on for them to use a nuclear weapon on like a civilian target, because I find if you use a nuclear weapon in a war, similar to what the States did in Japan, that's just the move to end the war.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I don't think we're there yet. But the fact that that conversation is now coming on, nuclear weapons online, is worrisome to me. And we have the American government right now and the rest of NATO and the G7 are not backing down. And that's causing more chaos.
So here's why I disagree that I think that nuclear is going to be coming online into this situation. I think that if you start nuking things, it's game over. It is what you said. It's war ending. And I think that there's not a lot of money to be made that way. And I think that a lot of these like BlackRock-esque entities out there don't want that. They don't want the money to stop flowing from purchasing tanks and munitions and personnel. So I don't think
there's no one to collect rent from if they.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And if you decimate an entire area and make it uninhabitable, it's not good for business. So that's where is like twisted and disgusting as it is. I'm like, okay, I think actually that I don't think that nuclear war is coming, because I just don't think that the money can be made off of that. I think it's too final. And so that's where I think that you're going to see long drawn out tensions, and you might see on the ground soldier-based war as you're seeing right now, maybe with more players, maybe with more people involved. Hopefully not NATO, because that would make Canada then have to go to war, which I was in the military. I have friends in the military still. That would be very concerning for me. Yeah. So that to me, that's what I think, and that's what I'm worried about. But as far as like actual nuclear war, I think it is saber rattling, as you said, which I was like, ooh, well done, Josh. I like that. Just because, like I said, I don't think that these large financial entities that are permeating beyond country borders, that I just don't think that there's the money in there for them if things go nuclear. So I think that we will see that cool down a bit, but maybe, like I said, more on the ground fighting. Yeah. Because that's where the money is.
Right. And I think that's where, I guess that's more so where the concern is because I would be more obliged to believe that, or be okay with believing that, if we weren't dealing with Russia right now. Mm-hmm. Whereas they got their own oligarchs over there that do their thing. BlackRock really doesn't have their fingers in Russia currently. They have it very much in the West. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm more so nervous. You got a guy like Putin who's psychotic. Yeah. And he would rather take the whole world out with him rather than lose a war. That's just his personality. Yeah. And I think that's what makes me nervous. Is I agree. I would hope so that hopefully we just, not even hopefully. I would like this to end. I want someone in power who's just going to end this. And I know there's one politician who said that would happen if he got in. But the reality is, with the government that's currently in, I would hope they stop. But I guess in a reasonable, seeing what their behavior's been like way, I hope that they just do enough to not push us into a nuclear war. And yeah, as you said, just have hot fighting on the ground.
Yeah.
But it seems like they've not been really great with diplomacy with this man over there in Russia.
Yeah, but I would also say, like, look at who Russia's partners are, and I'd say China.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that China would not be a fan of a nuclear war.
That's a good
so
point.
I'm thinking that this is where I'm saying, like, I think there's too many players involved. There's too much money. And I think that it's, like I said, it's too dangerous to the wealthy's income streams. So I don't think that will happen, which is a really perverse way to prevent war. But I mean, I think that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, I hope so. I've started, regardless. I'm personally. This is just a personal thing. I've started. I hope things cool down. That's what I'm gunning for at this point. But I'm definitely preparing for the worst of what could happen. Do I think, nuclear weapons are going to affect us here in Halifax? Not directly.
No.
But they are going to affect the infrastructures that we currently rely on. If it does go off, and that's why I've been storing up food.
Oh no!
I'm starting to hit the prepper status at this point.
Oh no!
Of what I'm seeing in the world, and
yeah,
I've been buying small things, and personally, just about to purchase a pack of those. I think it was called a Life Straw.
Oh, okay.
Super cool device that I think they get up to 4,000 liters of water with it. That just you can just put it into a stream and it filters out all the toxins out of the water, and so you can drink fresh water. And super cool. But buying some of those, and because from my understanding, like, waterborne illnesses are a big deal when grids go down.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm keeping in mind.
Well, because you're urban based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where I'm more rural, I have a well.
Yeah.
So we're pretty good that way, and we also live beside a lake. So we gotta
love that.
Got a big fresh water source there. I also got myself a kayak on the weekend, so just to lighten it up. Yeah.
Going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to the Arctic.
Not from that lake, but it's funny because you say about being prepper status, and I kind of laughed a little bit. And I'm like, I did plant, 8 fruit trees on my property, and I'm also currently drawing up plans for a chicken coop. So it's like, wouldn't say I'm prepper. I like to use the homesteader kind of vibe. It feels a little more friendly. It's less bunkerish and more like country living and feeling good.
I would just say, at this point, I'm probably like 10% of my go bag is starting to get prepared at this point.
Oh my God.
I'm at that point.
You know where you're going to go though?
Where am I going?
You're coming over to my place.
Oh gosh. Yeah, baby. Sleepovers.
Hey, we got a good setup downstairs. Like, got the projector. We're not watching The Summer I Turned Pretty because that show's garbage.
But yeah, no. I mean, as I said, what we're seeing, I think what's the nuclear clock at? I think 11:39. They're saying something like that. Nuclear clock to midnight. We're a minute and 30 seconds before midnight. So that was January. Oh, sorry. What the heck? The 100 second midnight settings imagined remained unchanged in 2021 and 2022. On January 24, 2023, the clock was moved to 90 seconds before midnight, meaning that the clock's current setting is the closest it has ever been to midnight since its inception in 1947. So we're the closest to nuclear war, according to these people at least. I struggle to take them seriously personally when they get up with their clock and they stand beside it and they push big time. But like, these are things that are happening. Our side is not showing any sign of slowing down in terms of pushing for war and against a foe that is not afraid to use specific realms in war. So that's all I'm saying is I'm praying I'll never have to use this stuff, but I'd rather be prepared and then not have to use it.
Yeah. So my take on it is that, like, I don't think that we're at risk here in Nova Scotia. What I do think that was important that you said was the idea of, like, our infrastructure. The fact that, like, we rely on imports for food, we import electricity, we import so much of the things that make our society work. That's where I'm just like, my, sustainability, public resources management master's degree kind of like lights up in my brain, where I'm just like, okay, we need to be more sustainable. So I think, like, less life straw, more, like singular grid in our own province, where it's like, okay, we have renewable resources, things like the different energy producing infrastructure projects that they have that they want to put online, things like connecting rural communities together, using like rural transportation, bringing things in like public transportation that is like rail based, like things like that are just like good infrastructure projects, good use of tax dollars, and really creates self-sufficiency and sustainability in a province. I think that that's what we need to be pushing for in our province. And I think that's what people should be pushing for in wherever they live, honestly, is that so that if they can create economies of scale and benefit from being connected to others, I think that's great. But as a backbone, I think that you should be self-sustaining as well.
Totally.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it brings up a great point where I think COVID taught us that, where we need to be more self-sufficient in terms of everything that we have and not so reliant on a global economy. That might be racist to say these days, but
well, in the vein of like also pushing the project that I'm currently working on, I am doing the project. I had talked about this a little bit before on one of the podcast episodes about this idea of like living locally. And so I'm trying it. So as of September 1st, I'm trying to purchase all of my goods and services locally. I've already failed a couple times. It's interesting because I'm just like,
it's only been 4 days.
I know.
Gee.
It's hard. One of the things is that my water softener needed salt.
And
I'm like, where do I get that from? And so I was like, I don't know if there's like local salt vendors, like, you know what I mean? And so it's interesting. So I will start throwing some of that video content up on my channel, but it's hard. It is hard. The other thing I failed on was trying to find gluten-free buns.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one.
So I got blessed with the inability to process wheat, which, hooray. Everybody's always, is that a life choice? I'm like, absolutely freaking not.
It's not a life choice.
Do you think I hate myself? Like, why would I not want pizza? So I ended up buying that from the Superstore. And so, because there used to be a bakery in Bedford called Odell's Bakery, and they're gone now. I think COVID killed them. That's probably not the best way to say that, but it's out in the ether now. So,
men who are liberals are.
That's the wrong button. Whatever.
But it's been challenging, and there's some things like I was able to purchase like local strawberries, local blueberries. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when it all comes out in the wash, like what is actually available and what's not. So
Totally.
Keep an eye on that because it's interesting.
I will. And we're looking forward to that. We'll get that. We'll be reposting that on our Elevate stuff as well. Because I'll be curious to see where that takes you. But finishing, one last thing, finish off on.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the whole scenario with the Rock and Oprah trying to fundraise for Maui?
I thought it was funny because like I heard this one, I don't know if they were a comedian or just commenter, and they were just like, couldn't they pretty much buy the whole island between the two of them? It's like, yeah, like pretty much, like their fortunes are massive. I think it's I don't know if it's just like identity politics where they're just trying to be like, we are supporting. And then in the same vein, I'm just like, well, any money to go towards actual people trying to rebuild is going to be a good thing, I think. So it's just like one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah, the thing is dumb to me, man. The Rock, to me, is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But he's no longer the people's champ in my eyes.
Yeah.
He's officially part of that class that is out of touch with regular people. I get that he's part of this whole, this thing with Oprah because he is Samoan, and his lineage is from there, but it just felt so out of touch. The whole thing. I'm like, yeah, we have all this money, but we're gonna ask you people in this rough economy.
That's what I'm saying.
Be donating, and I was just like, dog, like it started with me when he what's the word I'm looking for? It was in the last election, the U.S. election, where he came out in support of Biden, and then like listed all the reasons why he's in support of Biden. I was like, but Biden doesn't that's not his
That's not his platform.
No, exactly. Yeah. I was just like, you clearly were given a script to read off of that you don't actually agree with or don't actually believe, I should say. Bro, that was the point. I was like, this guy's no longer the people's champ. He doesn't care about the people. The people are done with The Rock at this point.
Well, he's the hardest worker in the gym. So,
gee,
he's got his Under Armour deal. He's set. But yeah, I think that was the thing that I thought I was like, you guys are so wealthy. Like, you and Oprah together, like, so wealthy. It's insane. Why exactly? Why are you asking people who are just trying to get by? And I mean, God love people who are like willing to donate and help out. I haven't seen anything like on north of that border, like looking at Northwest Territories. They've been having a lot of trouble up there, like massive evacuations and major crisis for people up there with like systems that were already strained to begin with. And I haven't seen any kind of donations for that or any kind of buzz about that, but I don't know.
This is all hearsay at this point, but I thought that was interesting. I was like, I think this is happening in Kelowna, which is obviously a byproduct of what happened up in the Northwest Territories. But the videos I was seeing, people trying to get there to help, and the RCMP keeping people off, keeping people away.
Yeah.
That's sketchy. Same thing happened in Hawaii too with Maui.
Yep.
Why? Like, this wasn't a thing before. Like, there's been fires before and people were able to fight them on their own. But this time they said, no, I'm not gonna have you do that.
I wonder, like, my thought is like, is it the idea that if these people who go in or who are untrained, that they're going to somehow get injured and then we're gonna have to send in paramedics for them and stuff like that? But it's hard to understand why. And I think that's where my mind goes to, as like, that might be a possible reason, but even still, it's a bad one. Like,
this is why the conspiracy theorists like have a field day with this one, because there's strong, they have a strong case on this one, I would say. Like, why? Like this has never been an issue before where like officials have just stopped people from trying to help. But this scenario they did. Don't know why. The reason they said that the fire hydrants were not working was because essentially the fire melted the pipes or something like that. That was weird too. So like, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna leave it at what we'll see what happens in the coming days or in the coming weeks as information continues to come out and seeing how it's presented. But I don't know, man. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to me. I want to believe the narrative of like, yeah, it was just we're nervous about people's safety. We don't want them getting themselves hurt. Like, I want to believe that a lot, but man, it's been hard to believe people these days. So I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's what I look at the people who are like the firefighters and the people that I know in my own life, and I'm like, if they were sent an order to keep people out of an area, what would that possible reason be? And so I work backwards from that, because I have to think, like, at the same time, these are firefighters who are local to those areas. It's like, what is happening there? So whether they're being fed good information or bad information, who knows? That's something big above my pay grade to understand. But yeah, that's what I think is like, I think that I would still put trust in people in that way, that like they're going to try and act in a way that, you know, is going to be the best for people. But it's just frustrating, the lack of communication around what's happening, I think. And I think that what happens is when you have a vacuum of information where there's none, and you're just left with, you know, piecing one and two things together, I think that's exactly where conspiracy grows. And sometimes it is the case, and sometimes it's not. And so it's hard to like know when it is and when it isn't if there's nothing really said about it.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think I agree too, where, you know, good people don't just say they're going to do inhumane things. That's just typically not how it happens. But it happens by giving half truths. They get half stories, and they're just operating to set off the information they received. I agree. There's people on the ground typically who are just trying to do the best they can. And I feel like those people at times can be given half stories, just be told to do their job, shut up, and we're in a crisis right now, do your thing. Because something similar happened here in Nova Scotia during our fires, where a bunch of retired firefighters were looking to help, and they were turned away. For similar reasons that they're having over in Kelowna, where you don't have the right credentials and this, that, the other. You need to go through like our courses. And it's just like, bro, it's kind of similar to having retired nurses come back. Like if you need the help, like just like, sure, maybe the training's not up to date, but they're going to be more helpful than Joe Schmo off the street. Yeah. You know, so like, why are we turning away that help when you clearly need the help?
It's the same conversation I had about developers and people who are in the construction industry who want to help build houses. And, you know, you even saw with like mutual aid when they were building all those sheds and stuff like that. It's like, obviously these people have carpentry skills. Why aren't we putting them to use to build houses and build shelters for people? And I think it does come back down to like weird liability now where anybody can be sued for anything. And I think that we almost need to take a step back and say, okay, we need some kind of crisis ruling where it's like, if you're signing up to help, you're signing up to help at your own risk. Like we release all the government entities and bodies and private entities of liability just to get something done.
Right.
Because I think that that's what's actually happening. I think it's like people who are afraid of lawsuits, afraid of somebody getting hurt and then suing and all the drama that goes with all that. True. And I think that it's gotten to a point where, you know, anybody can be sued for, you know, looking at somebody the wrong way. I think that that's actually become an obstacle to actually fixing things. And I think like it's fires, it's housing, it's healthcare, it's everywhere. And I think that that is a major barrier. And so I think that a really good step would be some kind of legislation in place that absolves people of liability. And it's not so much saying like, let's just have like everybody, you know, Wild West out there, you know, cowboy style. But at the same time, it does mean like using resources that, you know, might not be accredited or, you know, have all the different paperwork behind them. But if they have the experience and the knowledge, like you can triage it, right?
Right. Yeah, man, I think it's a good point. I think that's fair. And I think that's an interesting way to end out. I think those are good questions. I think, you know, if you join us at Thursday, we will be chatting about what's happening currently in the housing economy. What does this mean if you're a current homeowner? What does this mean for you? What's going to happen with the interest rates on September 6th coming up here in this couple of days. I'll give you right now, the prediction is I think the rates are going to stay the same, and we'll tell you why on Thursday, and you'll know on Thursday, but that's my prediction. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, join us for that. We'll be happy to have you, and we're excited.
That will be wild if they don't keep them the same, I'll say. I think that it will make a wild episode on Thursday if they don't, because I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think it'll stay the same, but
yeah, because officially our economy is contracting.
Yeah.
So there's no reason right now to increase them again. But what makes it very interesting too is that the state's economy is still very strong, and they're likely to continue increasing, which means likely that $1.33 for an American dollar could go up to $1.40, $1.45. and continue making the Canadian dollar as weak as ever. But we'll leave it at that. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you be going for a walk,
Going for a swim at your local lake.
or drinking and getting hydrated through a life straw, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out. Peace.